Welcome back to The Line. This week, Milan Simonich from the Santa Fe New Mexican wrote a very interesting column on what he found when he looked into where one political candidate lives. That would be Jeff Varela. He is running to replace his father, Lucky Varela, in the State House in Santa Fe in District 48. The district is in Santa Fe, but Jeff owns a house in Rio Rancho, and all evidence points to the fact that he's lived outside of that district for a long time. And Janice, this isn't the first time we've had this issue, as they say. I'm curious where you come down on this.
This is the sleight of hand.
Okay.
And so, is this common? You bet.
Yeah.
You bet. There's nothing that irritates me more than somebody who walks into a district 6 months in advance and says, I want to run there, and I'm now a resident. And by the way, that's the rules.
6 months minimum.
6 months minimum.
Okay, yeah.
Or people who will sign up to run for office and they live in another district and then 6 months later move into that district. I personally believe that the best representation is from people who live within your community. But it's not so simple. And so one of the things I want to throw on the table very quickly is, what is representation? Because we spend a lot of money on redistricting with the assumption that you have a representative that actually speaks for you. Well, did you know that right now, when our congressional candidates run again, they do not have to live in our district. Now, how would you like it if all of your congressional candidates actually lived in Albuquerque?
Right.
I can tell you the hue and cry is huge. And Hillary Clinton is a good example. Did she live in New York when she ran? No.
That's right.
No. But I can tell you from personal experience that this is not unique in the state of New Mexico.
Yeah.
But it bothers me greatly, and it starts with the rules to run as a candidate, and there is a 10-day window to challenge this. And if you fail to challenge it, you don't know that you have to challenge it, no court is going to back you up to say that they don't live in their district, and you know very well they don't live in their district.
Isn't that funny? I didn't realize that. 10 days.
10 days.
Wow. Interesting. You got to be on it to be in a political office these days. That's interesting. We're talking about Jeff Varela specifically. Interesting, Antoinette, that not only did he live in Rio Rancho, he's very much tied into the community at Rio Rancho. He has held political seats in Rio Rancho. He has run for office in Rio Rancho on 2 different occasions for city council and not made it. What does that say to you? Where does he live, quote unquote? Where does his heart versus where does his heart lie?
Well, and it's interesting wherever his heart lies, but
Right.
the statute is, I think, unclear. We're talking about it. It says
Yes.
wherever he had the intent to reside,
Right.
or his intent to return.
Right.
And it turns out that that's going to be a question of fact for a judge to decide. And it turns out that suit has to be brought very, very quickly. But really, I think where this is going to end up being decided is by the voters. Because if his opponents if nobody challenges it, which I don't think it's too late.
It's already too late to challenge.
So it's too late.
Done deal.
So now it's really just, thank you to the press
Sure.
to highlight this, and now the voters need to decide whether they think it's representation for them.
I love that. You got right to the point of this. Sophie, what do you think? Do voters care about this at the end of the day? Because I ask again, it's not as if Jeff Varela doesn't know District 48. He was born there. He was raised there. He's of it, so to speak.
I'm going to say something very cynical, which is that I think the voter who cares is the voter who's already decided not to vote for that person. And that's true on a wide range of issues, right? You sort of elevate a particular issue that this candidate doesn't agree with you on or doesn't fit because you are talking, you're sort of justifying your decision not to vote for them. So when it comes down to it, I think what's going to happen in that Santa Fe district is that there will be a certain number of people who will see the last name Varela, will remember his dad, and will just pull the lever. I guess it's bubbling now. There will be a certain number of people who were never going to vote for him, who are going to say that carpetbagger, and there are going to be a certain number of people who were always going to vote for him, who are going to say, I believe him, I trust him to do the right thing.
That's right. Interesting summary there. I like that. As a reminder, by the way, there's been a Kennedy that moved to Rhode Island and carpetbagged that state into Congress for like 8 terms. I mean, this happens all the time. And he parachuted in.
But you got to ask the money question. So if it is so important to have districts, but it clearly doesn't matter,
Right.
why do we spend all this money redistricting, and why do we engage in this census battle? Because it calls for
That's right.
equal representation. Talk about gerrymandering. And look at the state of Florida.
Sure.
They made a district that was over 100 miles long and a mile wide.
That's right.
So that African Americans had a voice there.
It's been crazy.
And it had to do with representation.
That's right. Eddie, what do you think here? Do you have pause with this? I mean, Jeff, again, I say again.
Do I have pause?
Jeff Farella is of this district. It's not as if he's coming in from Connecticut.
He was born of the
Right,
district.
exactly,
He is not
you know?
of the district.
Right.
He's been in Rio Rancho for the last 20 years. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't want to pick on anybody
Sure.
specifically. He's already gotten through. He's passed the SNP test, regulations, whatever. Sophie's exactly right. You know, the people have already decided that they're against him or against him. But here's the problem. The political class takes advantage of the fact that there's a lot of people out there who don't know the rules, the 10-day rule. Oh, Varela, he's on the... I've been voting for him for years. Let's just go with Varela. We can go back to Raymond Sanchez and how John Sanchez ascended, where people, you know, couldn't interchange the names between Raymond and People take advantage of surnames, and this is exactly what he's doing. You mentioned the person 8 terms in Rhode Island. He's taking part in a familial heritage at this point with Lucky Varela.
Or like
Lucky Varela's...
Jacinto, remember Jacinto? Yeah.
I mean, this is part of the system, and people need to inform themselves. He is simply exploiting as part of what he's already learned, as part of being in the entrenched. You think those judges are going to stand in the way? They're probably going to pick up the phone and call him and say, hey, one more day, we'll get through it, buddy. I mean, I really do feel that there's a lot of these people who are kind of getting together and deciding at the end of the day that we know what it takes to have power. I mean, they don't know, or they know what all the other people out there don't know, Gene, and they take advantage of that. And we're lucky that someone decided to cover the piece in the Santa Fe New Mexican, and that's good work. But you know, this is a failure of voters in as much as it's a gain on the political class. To
You know, one of the tidbits from Milan's piece, which I highly recommend,
It's a
it's
great
a very
article.
interesting
Very
read.
good
I
article.
tip our hats to him on that one. The idea of where he was registered as a voter, Sophie Martin, his dad's place versus his place in Rio Rancho. And he ended up giving Milan a couple of different answers during a couple of different conversations about where actually this is supposed to be happening.
Yeah.
And sometimes, as Janice mentioned at the top, this can be a little thick for the voter to kind of carve through and make a decision. Does that kind of thing, is that a little too nuanced about where you're registered? Because I say this
it
as a
goes
backdrop of
beyond-
our Secretary of State's problems over the years. We've
I
got
think
all
it's
kinds of
it's
stuff.
bigger than that, frankly. You know, many of our residents went to UNM or NMSU or Eastern or CNM, and they experienced that. You know, how do I prove that I'm a New Mexico resident in
Right.
order to get resident tuition? It's harder to get in-state tuition than it is to run for office.
Right.
They may have issues with I lived part of the year in another state, I lived part of the year here. For state tax purposes, it's harder to prove that you are in New Mexico or not in New Mexico than it is to run for office in New Mexico. So for whatever reason, I'm going to roll my eyes a little bit, for whatever reason, our legislature has made the decision to keep this loose and easy, as opposed to the rules that we see for student athletes, that we see for scholarships, that we see for
Thank you.
tuition, that we see
Thank
for
you.
taxes.
The political class is
Given
never
the
going to hurt
right, though,
themselves,
in
Gene.
it.
That's right.
They're never going to vote against themselves, whether it's for pay or making things more difficult. Do you think they want to be able to have the same advantages that Jeff Varela has?
you
I'd
go.
say, but
Isn't it,
Antoinette
please?
made
Yeah.
such a good point,
Yeah.
though, that the definition of reside. And there are many people I know that if you read the rules, you're really not supposed to register to vote where your business is. You're supposed to register where you live. But the issue of reside, does that mean you have to sleep there?
Right.
All of that is open to
Right.
discussion, all of it. But again, I'm going to ask you, you know, and I had Gary Smith, you all know, he stabbed my tires.
Yes.
That man, when he filed his petitions, used an address that he did not live in.
Oh, no kidding.
He was registered to vote falsely when he lived in Texas. Where did he live? And he was going to run for Congress. Then he stabbed my tire.
That's right. That ended that campaign.
That's
Exactly
one
right.
thing. You know,
That's one way to
Antoinette
lose it.
started to
Good,
bring
please.
up, I think, a really interesting and important point, which is the right to vote is a right.
Right.
The right to go to UNM is not so much a right. Yeah.
Right. And that's the difference. And I think that's why the rules are looser. And I think that that's really important. You want to encourage people to participate in the system. And you want to encourage transparency, which is why I like that article so much.
Right, exactly. Please.
One last thought, though.
Yeah.
In the state of New Mexico, because we're a citizen legislature and the way we are structured, we do not look at public service as a career. And quite frankly, you really can't make much of a living here unless you work for the government. So is some of what's happening a reflection of what's okay across the country, except that our system really doesn't support it?
Right. Interesting point there. Later this hour, these line panelists discuss where the Gathering of Nations might go after UNM announced the annual event can no longer be held at the pit.